Donald Trump continues to fight the Bragg prosecution, and now we see that he's filed what some say are as many as 10 plus appeals, trying to get the court to just offer him a small slice of due process so that he can review, hundreds of thousands of pages of discovery that was dropped on his lap over the last month or so as they continue to race this case to trial. So clearly not going to be being appealed. It sounds like the Court of Appeals are pretty set on making sure this thing goes forward and trial stays on track, because the gag order appeal just got denied. Here is what it looked like when this hit the docket. Very short filing. Trump submitted this. It is petitioner versus Merchan. It's an Article 78 petition, which is on the order to show cause related to 3 unconstitutional features of a gag order that was imposed by Judge Merchan. They're asking, this is Trump's defense, for a stay of the proceedings, right? There will be irreparable harm. If Trump cannot speak about this, the election comes and goes. It's over. You don't get to do it again. If there's harm in a criminal trial, you can do it over again. They just say, okay, that cop lied, that prosecutor lied, let's do it again. That juror screwed that up, so let's do it again. But in an election season, you don't get a redo. There's no opportunity to come back to this. So they say, we are asking for a stay of these proceedings until we deal with this. Now, the unconstitutional features of the gag order are causing an ongoing irreparable harm to the petitioner. That's Trump. But it's not just Trump. It's us, the voting public under New York and the U.S. constitutions. We're all impacted by this. This came in from Todd Blanche to Matthew Colangelo. We know who that is. He's a Biden, Obama, Tish James, hatchet man. But watch what happens when this stuff goes in, right? Things are very, very quickly decided. So the application for this thing, for the interim stay of the proceedings and the pending resolution of the Article 78 proceeding, is denied without prejudice to any determination by the full bench. And it sounds like we're going to have maybe another hearing. You can see here some deadlines here on the 15th, right? So April 15th is the same day that jury selection starts in the trial. This was submitted, received by the court on the 8th. So they'll have a follow-up hearing by the full bench. That looks like it'll happen maybe on the 15th. It's being expedited and the court attorney signed off on it. So Court of Appeals are denying it, right? And Merchan is not going to continue this case. So if the Court of Appeals are not going to retract the case from his courtroom, take it away from him, then this thing is going to stay right on track. So Trump appealed again. This was another one that dropped. You can see this one just got filed today. The date of this recording, April 10th, 2024. That one was from the 10th. It's a new set of documents, same type of thing. And what we're finding out is this is like number 10, maybe 11, right? And it's happening so fast we can't even see them. So the way it works, as you'll learn when you go listen to GoodLawgic, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, who's filing something similar, has done that already. It happens very quickly. So you file it, they schedule a hearing like the next day, it happens. So by the time this is all, you can see even when the screenshot was taken, it's all still being processed, right? Processed and pending. So it takes a while for it to hit the docket. So something like this was happening today, and Adam Klasfeld was reporting on this. He says Trump's attorneys are currently arguing again to delay his New York criminal trial, and I'd call it an adjournment because he's entitled due process, but we can take that up later. This time he's arguing on immunity and other issues. By Bragg's count, that's more than 10 attempts to adjourn the trial so that he can review all of the discovery, access the Stormy Daniels documentary. Remember, the Stormy Daniels documentary just came out like on the 19th of March. So there's a lot of material that he needs to review. Plus we're in the middle of an election season. So he's trying to preserve these arguments. So 10 times, any one of these would be a good basis for an adjournment and a stay of the lower level proceeding, but they deny. They're not going to take it. Klasfeld says, okay, on the grounds cited by Trump's lawyer, Emil Bove, shout out, Merchan ordered that the parties must receive permission to file any more 11th hour pretrial motions. The judge says, I'm tired of all your appeals. Stop it. Ah! Bove calls them unacceptable, Your Honor. Trump's defense says, Your Honor, this is unacceptable. We're allowed to file motions. We have to defend our client and do our job as lawyers. They're unconstitutional restrictions on our ability to file defense motions. Judge is like, well, what do I care about the Constitution? I've already unconstitutionally gagged you too. Deal with it. So Trump's lawyer pivots to the presidential immunity arguments. He says, Your Honor, Trump's argument here is very different than the one in Washington, D.C. The argument here is evidence of official acts. Evidence of official acts cannot be offered at a criminal trial against a former president. So most of the 10 requests to adjourn have happened at the lower court level, though Trump is racking up a growing number of attempts at the appellate level as well. Now, Bove pivots to the final ground in Trump's latest request, recusal. appeal. The judge notes, okay, originally your motion on that issue was decided last August, so that's a long time ago. He's like, I didn't even read it. He's like, I threw that in the garbage as soon as it came in. Get out of here. What's your next question? Trump's lawyer claims that new evidence came to light. Your Honor, you got to read it again. We just learned your daughter literally is working for Joe Biden, so you should read it again. Bragg says, nuh-uh, it was already the same judge. You already decided, no take backsies. So on the delay from the original motion in the appeal, Trump's lawyer Bove says, Your Honor, I don't think it's untimely, okay? I don't think that's an issue that can ever be untimely. So like you can say it's not timely, but we can raise this whenever we want because it's fatal to the entire case. Like again, it's not like the clock just runs out when there is a total blanket to liability. So sorry. So that's Trump's arguments. Government prosecutor for Bragg comes up. His name's Stephen. He starts off with the argument that these petitions are improper. Yeah, these are timely improper. He says the judge loves the timeliness argument, so they're procedurally improper. And Wu adds that Bove's characterization of the pretrial motions are also patently false. He says, Your Honor, so they're not Merchan's, they're appealing to someone else. They say Merchan also ordered that the parties receive permission to file motions just weeks before the trial date for a reason, so we don't have to be here wasting everybody's time. Trump's attorneys had been, quote, inundating the court with belated filings that were just on the eve of trial, he says. Yeah, they're trying to delay this thing. He makes a point on immunity. He says, this is not a claim that Trump is immune from these charges, and Trump is contesting the admissibility of the evidence, which Wu says is not appealable right now. So Trump is not saying he's immune from the charges. He's saying he's immune from the admission of the evidence. All of the actual official acts were evidence while he was the president. Prosecutor argues that the court shouldn't even consider the recusal because Trump's renewed request remains pending. He also notes that the state ethics committee already cleared you, Judge. Your daughter can work for Joe if she wants to. The arguments we're making here, just 5 days before jury selection, says the prosecutor, is just about to begin, have already been adjudicated. So this has already been dealt with a long time ago. A different attorney for Bragg's office stands up. He says, Your Honor, a trial delay would cause enormous disruption. Security has been planned for months in this trial. Trump's team comes back up. He says, Your Honor, there's an information deficit here that we're witnessing. In proving claims about Merchan and his alleged conflict with his daughter, there's a fact finding that needs to happen here, okay? She's literally working for Trump's opponent and daddy is prosecuting him. That's a problem. Lisa Evans for Bragg's office pops up, says there's no evidence to suggest that Merchan stands to benefit from the outcome of this trial. No, but his daughter does, and that's a benefit to daddy. If your daughter does well, doesn't the father get a benefit from that? So Associate Justice Ellen Gessmer adjourns the proceedings. They turn around and there was a ruling basically immediately. Plasfeld reported, an appellate court again rejects another attempt by Trump's team to delay the start of the criminal trial. Between lower and appellate court attempts, that's more than 10 attempts by the DA's count. And so the rig prosecution continues. Now I want to pause, as we mentioned at the top of the show, our friend GoodLawgic is fighting a very similar battle on behalf of the people because you know GoodLawgic. He brings you legal news and analysis. Here he says, fighting to have Trump's gag lifted in his New York criminal proceeding. I filed this Article 78 proceeding in the New York appellate court that the gag violates the First Amendment, freedom of press, and asked for an emergency TRO. Now I wait for the court to get back to me. Good stuff, right, my friends? And so be sure that you are following GoodLawgic because he's going to be going through the proceedings that we just kind of articulated here, right? What Trump is going through, they filed Article 78. He's filing something else, basically the similar proceeding, but for a different reason, right? On behalf of free access under the First Amendment and, freedom of the press, access to a historic case and a historic trial. So elsewhere, we have former Trump counsel who is also explaining what he thinks is going to happen in this upcoming criminal trial. But here is Trusty saying, we're just days from this thing. Time to get focused. It's go time.
It's interesting, and I don't want to get too far afield in terms of the prior representation, but I think the bottom line is at some point, you really have to shift into the mode of trial and tactical and not worrying as much about the politics. That's difficult for someone who's running for president right now. But as a lawyer, I think your obligation is to say, look, we got to focus on the task at hand because this is a triable case. And this is going to be a case where jury selection that Paula just laid out is incredibly important because there's going to be a real incentive for people to want to be celebrity jurors, to find a way to answer the questions in a way, perhaps dishonestly, that gets them into that magic number of 12 jurors. So there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to be focusing on. I think in terms of courtroom decorum, courtroom behavior, because it's such a, I think, creative, which really means weak case, relying so heavily on the credibility of Michael Cohen, that even in New York, President Trump has a shot. So I think the lawyers need to focus on trying the case, on cross-examination, on the right arguments to make. And they want to have a client who's respectful in the courtroom so that the jury doesn't have any risk of being alienated by any of that kind of political political atmosphere.
All right. So Mr. Trusty, Jim Trusty, I think, with some good analysis there, right? Trial's coming up, and a victory at trial would also be a major victory politically, right? If Trump walks into this thing and he emerges victorious, they are going to be so upset about this. I mean, it's going to be a meltdown level 10, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. I think New York is largely a foregone conclusion. We saw a lot of that reflected in Trump's surveys that he submitted to the judge when he was seeking a change of venue or an adjournment until after the election, but none of that, of course, has come into play. But we are going to be here continuing to cover this. It is unlikely that the trial does get moved, and so we'll see what happens. Be sure you're checking out GoodLawgic and his channel, following him and supporting his work, as he is fighting hard, my friends, on behalf of the public, the people. Good stuff over there. We'll be here as well. Don't forget to check out some of the other links down in the description below. We got our locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, right next door to Joe. We've got our website, robertgovea.com, and our lodge, watcherlodge.com, where we're focusing on sovereignty and self-development every Saturday. All free, watcherlodge.com. We'd love to have you come and join us so that we can focus on the solutions and our futures together. We'll see you there. We'll see you right back here on the next one.